He was in handcuffs. He was in a suit, a polka dot tie. He was released from his handcuffs in order to sign paperwork saying that he was pleading guilty. The judge going through counts 1 to 3, and then counts 7 to 10 in this case. Those first 3 counts were first-degree murder for Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Amber Costello, and the second-degree murder charges, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, Sandra Castilla. Now, also, what was revealed in court today, an extra person who he admitted to murdering without actually facing charges of murder. That woman is named Karen Vergata. So basically, the judge went down and asked him how these people were murdered. He said that they were all murdered by strangulation, that they were dismembered, and then that their bodies were disposed of, or at least parts of their bodies were disposed of, in and around the Gilgo Beach area. So obviously a long-awaited resolution, at least in some part, for a lot of the families. There were audible gasps in the courtroom itself, some emotional responses there. I can't overstate how emotionless Heuermann appeared in court today. And really the central question is, why now? Well, he's been held up in solitary confinement. We don't have any sort of reason as to why today he decided to plead guilty. But I also want to note that, while there is a semblance of closure for some of the families and friends of the victims, a lot of people wanted to see this go to trial to understand the full scope of what these women went through when they were murdered. Other family members, other friends of victims found it far too painful to hear testimony. So mixed reactions from the people who were able to witness this today, but a long-awaited day for this case that has extended across decades, has evaded police in so many ways. We are still waiting for those answers. I also want to point out, Mugo, one other note. We are looking at a separate lawsuit against the family member of Heuermann, and this is basically alleging that his wife and his daughter couldn't have possibly been unaware that this was happening in the home. That is something we're also following. That was filed by the son of one of the victims, Valerie Mack. Her son is named Benjamin Torres. And essentially he is saying that he was robbed of his childhood because he lost his mom when he was 6 years old. He also points to a documentary that was filmed where Peacock, the production, the company that was commissioning the production, they were paying for access to the actual Heuermann home. He is saying in this court case that money should not go to the family of Rex Heuermann. It should actually go to the family members of the victim. So we're following that separate thread here, but once again, a very, very big day in this case. Heuermann was expected to have his trial in front of a jury in September. That is no longer going to happen after he pleaded guilty to 7 separate counts today and admitted to the murder of an 8th woman, which we just learned in court moments ago, Mugo.
Yeah, and Tom, I know you can't read anyone's minds, but we're going to hear likely from Heuermann's lawyer and also from his wife. Any insight into how they could react? I know when this case first came out and he was arrested, his wife had said she didn't believe that he was guilty. So any insight into how she's going to respond if she does in fact speak today?
Well, it speaks to what the prosecution was saying, was that essentially Heuermann was leading a double life. By day, the successful architect in Manhattan, and by night, so to speak, a murderous serial killer. And so, yeah, we can expect that the family is understandably stunned about some of the revelations here. But we also don't know the full scope because we are not going to hear that testimony, potentially witness testimony, things like that could give us more details as to how sadistic this individual was. But, broad strokes, the family saying that in some part they are victims of his decisions as well. Obviously, that does not compare to the victims, the family of the victims who were murdered, but that is what they are saying today, Mugo. We will await their comments in front of the press in just a few moments.
Yeah, definitely no comparison there. Tom Hansen, thank you so much for your reporting today. We appreciate it. All right, as the war with Iran is under a 2-week ceasefire, the question of Iran's nuclear ambitions still hangs in the balance. The U.S. launched Operation Midnight Hammer last year, striking several of Iran's nuclear facilities. And today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says Iran may hand back its enriched uranium voluntarily, but followed that with a warning.
On the uranium, we're watching it. We know what they have, and they will give it up, and we'll get it, and we'll take it. If we have to, we can do it in any means necessary. So that's something the president is going to solve for. We already have Midnight Hammer with the place we put them in, and the reason it's in the situation where it is.
And for much more about this, I am joined by CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd. Good to see you today, Sam. So President Trump has been focused on Iran's stockpiles, but what are some other pieces of the puzzle when it comes to its nuclear program?
Sure. If you look at the nuclear program overall, Mugo, we want to make sure that we don't just get rid of and focus on the stockpile of what's known as highly enriched uranium. Highly enriched uranium is uranium in which the percentage of a particular isotope has been increased such that when it's highly enriched, Iran or any other government that has it can more quickly turn that into what's known as weapons-grade material. Iran has over 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium at this stage, which is what the president appears to be focused on. However, it is equally as important to focus on the machines, the actual assets and tools that are used to enrich uranium itself. Those are known as centrifuges. And that's why under the original Iran nuclear deal, the United States and its partners focused not just on the existing stockpile of highly enriched uranium, but also placed limits on the amounts and kinds of centrifuges that Iran could keep in country to try to prevent Iran, if they change their mind, from just breaking out to making more highly enriched uranium. And finally, we also have to think about whether Iran has any undeclared nuclear facilities that we don't know about. That could be used for things like actual research and development on what we call weaponization, which is taking that nuclear material and actually fitting it onto a weapon that can then launch, transport, and actually strike a target. So many different pieces of the puzzle to think about.
Yeah, and do we know what Iran's capabilities are at this point of being able to actually produce a nuclear weapon, given the fallout from this war? We hear from the president over and over again that the enriched uranium is buried deep down and they can't possibly get it back. But do we know that for sure?
We have less insight than we did a few years ago because the international monitors that were doing inspections as part of the original Iran nuclear deal have had much more trouble getting access to Iran's nuclear capabilities ever since Trump pulled out of the deal. So we don't have a fulsome picture of what Iran's wholesale capabilities are. The U.S. intelligence community has assessed that Iran's nuclear program was seriously damaged after Operation Midnight Hammer. They did not say that it was obliterated. We also, importantly, do have a U.S. intelligence community assessment that the Iranian regime had not decided, and this is important, to break out to a nuclear weapon. So even if they had the capabilities to do so, that the regime had not decided to actually move forward with producing a weapon. And that's an important assessment to keep in account.
Okay, Sam Vinograd, we appreciate your insight today. Thank you.
Thank you.
A fire broke out at Los Angeles' historic Magic Castle. More details and other headlines we are following for you today after the break. Stay with us on CBS News 24/7.
I'm Adriana Diaz.
And I'm Kelly O'Grady.
Join us right here
For the perfect start to your weekend.
Watch CBS Saturday morning.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
This Easter Sunday morning, art that's truly heavenly. Plus Laughing Matters with Dan Levy and Gene Smart. Listen for the trumpet.
The only way to get a 360-degree understanding of America is to get out there in America. There really is no swing at all when it comes to the priorities of everyday people. We care about how secure our job is, whether we can plan on retiring with dignity, whether our kids can have a brighter future than we have today. These are the fundamentals of American life, and I think they can be again.
Meet the artists and musicians keeping a Mardi Gras tradition alive for over a century. One that most tourists will never see.
A burglar is caught red-handed.
We start investigating the burglary. In the process, we're told there's a murder involved here,
Leading police to a killer.
Ethylene glycol was in Harold's system. It's the main component in antifreeze.